is on the plus side.
This meeting is being recorded.
It's not super hard on your system as far as like when they're, I mean, it's too early to really assess this, but they're anticipating that as far as the long COVID symptoms, that we're less likely to get it, that it's a faster recovery. All of those are good things. However, they're like, it's so easily transferable, and that means it's easy to mutate, so that you are going to get it more. And I was like, oh, that doesn't sound fun.
Well, both my experiences have been awful. So
oh no,
I don't want, so I must not be one of those people that has a real easy time of it.
I was just really tired. I like lost my voice. It was like I had laryngitis, and then just was sleepy and lost my taste for like a day. And then it came back and was fine. So I was fine. I had like 3 days where I was a zombie. But overall, I think a very minor case.
Well, I called Damon a minute ago, half an hour ago or more from the road, because I was traveling to where I am now, and I was afraid with the traffic jam that I might be late. And in that call, I told him that I have our agenda plus some notes that I can do a share screen with to help guide us.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, we have a quorum, it looks like. Hey, Damon.
Yeah, because I don't think Vivian's on spring break, so I don't think she can be here. Is that correct?
Vivian had told me she would try to be.
Okay.
I also know that she's in Spain. So, well, so if I were a betting man, it would be that she would not be joining us. But I think that we have a quorum with the three of us.
Mm-hmm. And Max, you are there too, because I think we have a few questions for you as well.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, hi.
Hey.
Shall I put this up and we can get going?
Sure. Hi, Max. Hi, Damon. My camera's off. I promise I'm here.
Sounds good.
I am hopefully you are seeing my screen right now, right?
Is that right?
See the Zoom webinar page.
Yeah. Okay. Let me pull up my this agenda item. Make sure that's the right thing. Yeah. So the first thing I'll make sure of is that you can all see this clearly.
Looks good.
Does that show? Okay. So here we are. I did list the 9 applicants with their names, but I then made a column of initials. I don't know how easy that's going to be to work with, but I do remember that the last time we had our travel scholarship program, we tried to make sure we preserved anonymity in the applicants. So to the extent that we can refer to them by initials, or if anyone has any other ideas. I'm jumping down to number 2, brief review of program policies. I'm jumping down to the bold here. We, at our last meeting, we did not make decisions for the program long-term, whether to have 1 or 2 cycles a year, but we decided to run an interim program or an immediate program, however we want to call it. And that's so we could address immediate requests and applications. And also we wanted to, address the delay that was caused by the postponement of everything at our February meeting. Everyone on board with that? We had to kind of skip the travel scholarship program discussion in lieu of other issues that came up. So here's what we agreed to in March, just so we're all on the same page. And this is what we're basing our work today on. We have not yet distributed the fiscal year 2023 TSP allocation. And at our last discussion of all of this a year or so ago, we had voted to allow $4,000 a year to travel scholarships. We voted in March at our March meeting to add another $4,000 to it from our present balance to increase the total allocation for travel scholarships to $8,000. We would dedicate $2,000 to each city. We said we would award the money not on a rolling basis. That was my error. But we would do it via official applications, a typical application period attached to a cycle. And whether this is the only cycle for 2023 or not remains to be determined. But for right now, we're working with $8,000 and this immediate cycle in front of us. We did not determine what to do if we don't have any applicants for a city's allocation. In other words, how to handle unrequested money, or whether if there's no request for travel to city X, can we use that money if we have multiple eligible qualified applications?
I thought we decided that we would do that.
Oh.
Did we not? Hey, Vivian has joined us.
Yeah, I was under that impression that we would use it for that year's pot for other cities.
Okay. I did not recall that, and I don't know. I meant to check the minutes. I don't know that we have the minutes yet for the March meeting.
No, that we don't have. They haven't been sent out yet. But I remember, in alignment with Vivian and Damon, that it was basically the hypothetical situation that what if we did not get applicants from certain cities, but a surplus of applicants from one city, that it could be decided that we use the money that would have been given to Weiwei to, somewhere else, depending on. That was how I remembered it to be, but does someone else have a different memory?
No, you're all remembering the same thing, and I'm not remembering, so that's okay. And I'm not saying I remember. It's fine. We can go with that. I may not be remembering clearly. I just changed my word excess to surplus. It's a better word there. We did discuss, I believe, that we can technically replenish TSP funds. We could put in $8,000 again in as that would start from July, and that would be fiscal year 2024. And that assumes that we would get a certain, an adequate or enough money in this upcoming allocation from the city. Okay. Moving on to number 3, our criteria for funding the travel to sister cities. The travel objective must align with our mission. The applicant should offer a compelling and or a reasonable explanation of need. And then this was my key question for all of you and for Max. If we have a stipulation about residency, the applicant's residency in Charlottesville or Albemarle, much as we encountered with the grants, do we need to be, take that into consideration? And is someone from another county other than Albemarle not eligible technically?
I think from our department standpoint, we have always tried to use the grants to support applicants that are either residents of the Charlottesville area, so Charlottesville and Albemarle. Any areas outside of that, while there's no hard and fast written rule that says this is not allowed, it is our interpretation that council has given the commission an allotment of funds to support local residents. And so I would just urge the commission to do that to the best extent as possible. If we find ourselves in a, particularly curious situation, then I can take that particular application back to the clerk and discuss it with her and get her thoughts on it. But I would urge the commission to support residents that applications that are from residents that either live in the Charlottesville or Albemarle County area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have one applicant from Greene County and one from Fluvanna. And I guess we just need to keep that in mind as we discuss their application, because it's not Albemarle. The other two communities, Keswick and Esmond, are Albemarle County, so I would assume they would be considered in the area. Every other address is a Charlottesville address. But of the 9, these 4, stood out for that reason, if that needed to be a requirement. I'm wondering if we could if we can keep number 4 in mind, but not spend a lot of time on it. Automatic eliminations by virtue of our program stipulations. I think applications, in my view, were stronger and weaker on these 2 points, but I didn't see any application that flat out, as in with, unlike the grants program where we received applications that were blank, or we received an application that didn't even include the application form. That wasn't the case with these 9 applications. Everyone submitted a proper form. Everyone filled them out to stronger or less strong degree. Does anyone want know of something that they think just should be out of the running? Just
of the applicants? I mean,
right, of the 9 applications, or yeah.
I mean, I personally thought that, I'm sorry, I'm looking, I have some notes. Let me look back, find the right one. I thought that the application of TR that seemed to focus more on, I mean, yeah, it was listed as Besançon or Poggio, but I thought that it really didn't hardly meet the standard of what we would want in a funded trip. I mean, basically the person is saying that they would like a vacation. I mean, that was my interpretation of that one.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I don't think it connected strongly enough to our mission and the things that we're doing. I mean, sure, it would be nice to, provide someone a trip there, but it seemed like it was weak in its connections to our programming. And yeah, that was the one that stood out for me.
I would. Oh yeah, go ahead, everyone. I can speak last.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say I agree with what Damon said, but I didn't see any application that didn't try at all to connect their application back to the purpose. Like, even if it was less obvious or it had weaker connection, I think there weren't any that were missing anything in a specific category, or didn't try at all to tie it back to the mission of the CSCC.
Vivian, except for the one by TR, is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that was weaker in the in that area, but it at least it tried to. So I don't know if it merits like an automatic toss out, but if we're going to go on to discussing the application, I definitely think that was a weaker application.
Allison, do you want to weigh in on that?
I was typing and then I was like, why don't I just unmute? So what I typed was, so moving forward, I think having a rubric that outlines, like, when we say connection to sister city, what that looks like, at that, to Damon's point, just traveling to the sister city doesn't necessarily mean that it's on behalf of sister city, like, principles or ideals. But I do think, like, to Vivian's point, they mentioned it. So I don't think based on like the automatic removal, they would qualify. It's just extremely weak, and it did read like a vacation. So that would be something that like in the future, had we had a rubric that said, this is what this is an example, this is a non-example, that would be a non-example and could be removed in that sweeping kind of motion. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. And I want to just call your attention to this little division I'm circling with my cursor. Just to organize our thoughts. So we did have the one application aimed at either Base en Son, or I put TR also in Pojo. But that applicant never mentioned Pojo at all in the application. The person focused most on Base en Son and in terms of the travel destination. So I have her listed, or him, her, it listed as a Base en Son. Then for Pojo, we have these 4. Again, one of them is the same TR from Base en Son. And Winneba, we have 5. And we may want to, at this point, I think I would stop my screen share so that I can take a few notes as we talk and refer to my own evaluations too as we talk. But if this is helpful for you to, or helpful to us to start maybe from the cities. So maybe we start with Pojo, then move to, see if we use up the funds for Pojo, and then go to Winneba, see where we stand, and then take it from there with surplus funds from no one applied for Huawei and only one application with Base en Son. So how does that sound?
Maybe start with Base en Son.
Okay.
I mean, obviously there's no one for Huawei Tenango. And I think our strategy, if we decide on whether or not we're going to fund the Base en Son proposal, will, our remaining strategy will impact how we address Pojo and Winneba. Considering we basically agreed to provide additional funding if we don't award funds to certain cities. I mean, my feel, if that's okay with you all, I think we ought to first address the TR proposal. Even though it is the only Base en Son proposal, I tend to think I'm not really for funding it. I just don't think it's adequate. I mean, they're basically proposing a vacation, and I just don't think that's good enough. I mean, and I appreciate their motivation, and I know that they're both public servants, which I certainly appreciate. But I think in the past, before any of us were on the commission, there was a lot of public concern about funding vacations and trips and things like that. And I think this one might be difficult to, stand out in front of people and say, I thought this was a great opportunity to connect our sister cities and it fit our mission and we wanted to fund it. I personally, I'm not very comfortable with that myself.
Well, I agree 100%. I mean, the applicant didn't say anything that connected with any aspect of our mission. And I think that makes an application almost ineligible. I mean, the travel scholarship funding is meant to support efforts or ideas or intentions to forge some kind of partnership, and that was missing from this application. So I would also say I don't think it should be funded.
I think Allison and I both something in the chat, but I won't elaborate further. I think I agree completely with what you guys have said already. So.
And I think, yeah, Allison agreed in the chat. So with that being said, I think we can now look at, you know, potentially funding 4,000 each for Poggio and Winneba. Or some
Before we
other
move on-
equation.
Before we move on from that application, if I'm looking at the correct one in your Google Drive, this particular applicant is a city employee?
I think it said that she was a city employee, but that she's now in
with
with the
IRC.
IRC,
Right.
International Residential College. That was my interpretation,
Mhm.
but I could be wrong. I could go. We could go.
Wait, I think we're mixing things up. I think this applicant is a city servant.
I thought that, no, this is the one where she worked for the Charlottesville Police Department, is that right? And her husband was in the military.
Right, right.
So that's the one.
She currently does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So I was mixing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have much background on this type of scenario, but I'm not sure as a city employee if she'd be eligible for a grant, and she may very well be, but I've not had to ask that question in the past.
So there is that as well.
Mhm.
You know, that's a good point.
Mhm.
So anyway, I think it sounds like we all agree through potentially multiple avenues, she's probably, the travel is probably not one that we want to fund.
But I will follow up with the group on an answer on the other, because we should know whether or not city employees can apply and receive a travel grant or what have you.
It is a good question, and yeah, we should include that in our application,
Mhm.
you know. Okay,
Okay. So, so Damon, you were saying then that if the funding for Besançon still stood at 2,000 and the funding for Wayway was there because there were no applications, we now have 4,000 to consider for both for four for Poggio and 4 for Winneba.
I mean, that's basically the way I see it. I think that reflects what we decided to do in our last meeting. I mean, technically, would it have to be 4,000 for each? It could be 3 and 8, or not 3 and 8, 3 and 5. But I think, yeah, I think we can use those funds for the other cities. And I think there were some very well thought out and well conceived proposals that we received from the other cities that we could potentially, you know, I think we have the potential to fully fund 8,000 worth of travel.
Shall we move in alphabetical order then?
Sure, sounds good.
Then the going by last name WC.
Oh, can we eliminate, so which one again are those that are from Fluvanna? So MT is from Fluvanna, right?
Let me look at my notes
Which
here.
I think we can exclude.
Yes, Fluvanna is MT. Now that is the person who worked for Charlottesville Social Services for quite some time and is with IRC.
Yeah.
I don't know if that fact counters the fact that the applicant is not an Albemarle County resident.
It sounds like in the spirit of what Max has said that they would not be eligible. And she's nodding yes for those who might not have video.
Not eligible or just kept kind of at the end of the line. I thought Max said we should, it was not a hard and fast rule, but we should, you know, bear it in mind.
I did say that, and we'd probably have to get at least the city manager's office to weigh in on whether or not we'd be extending grants to areas outside of Charlottesville. Again, prioritizing, I think that again, I would encourage the committee and the commission to prioritize Charlottesville residents in your grant awards.
Adrian, did you say CM was the other one that's not a city? Was that the one from Greene? Which one was Greene County?
Greene County is KJ. Is you know, if people are okay with it, it feels easier to me to discuss these by city rather than individually by in alphabetical order. I mean, we can still do alphabetical order, but it would be great to just to kind of see where we stand with Pojo and where we stand with Winneba in terms of.
Sounds good to me.
Fine.
Is that okay with Vivian and Allison?
Yep. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yep.
I also, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, I just also want to add, I think maybe it's important to add that the WC is applying for 4 people. So
Right.
those would be like, so yeah. So I guess we'd have to take that into account.
Definitely.
Well,
Yeah.
how about we just give, like, if possible, 5 minutes to each one, just saying, you know, what we think of their application, strength or weakness, or, you know, what they're
Sure.
asking. And if we start, we could start with WC, because we could start with Pojo, and and that's the first Pojo application. And as we all know, it's on behalf of Charlottesville High School students wanting to travel to Italy and connect with choral ensembles in Pojo. It is a request for $4,000 to cover 4 students at $1,000 each. I had a question. I was curious, out of how many students? I know it's not crucial, but I just thought it would be interesting to know.
What do you mean, how many? Like, how many are total are going?
Right.
Oh, so this, I can speak to this, and I also am happy to like sit this one out because I'm biased and will always want money to go to this one because of my position. But the way that it's my understanding that the way it's done, and I can get the exact number, but he only applied for students who it's based on needs based, right? So like we've got many students who are going. He's identified 4 students who without this money would not be able to or would significantly struggle in earning the money to do this. So that's why it's those 4 typically. I can get you the final number. I think he's taking at least 20 over, but I can.
Oh, okay. Well, that if it's in that area, that helps me out. I mean, it's just a curiosity I had. Would we be funding the whole group, or a fraction of a portion?
It's a fraction of the whole group. Many, and Vivian, I don't know. You're not in chorus, so you might not know, but do you have any friends that are in that and know roughly how many people are going?
I would say probably definitely over 20, maybe 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 4 is a small percentage of the group going. Is that a fair?
Yeah, that's just helpful to know.
As one with no connection to Charlottesville High School, other than having recently visited with an exchange group, I think that we could conceivably fully fund the request. I mean, I want to talk about the other Pojo proposal, but I think the proposal is well written. We know that it is definitely citizens of Charlottesville, not even just the county, but the city. And we know that they would be students who have a specific need, and that it would have a significant impact, not only on those 4 individuals, but those individuals are a part of a larger team who I'm sure would miss them if their parts were not sung alongside the other members of the group. So
it's a very choral response.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I think it's I believe that it could be funded at the full request, considering that there were no based on song or way proposals that merited funding. So that's my thought on this particular proposal.
Uh,
I don't disagree, but I'm super biased. So I will choose to sit this one out unless you want my opinion.
I'm glad to shift and talk about the other POGIO proposal if we want to speak to them kind of in tandem.
I'd like to say just a word and that on the high school thing, I'm totally behind supporting the high school students, just as we, you know, the commission as a whole felt for the Besançon trip. And I have to say that the only hesitation I have here is that it's a week-long trip in Italy, and the Poggio part is so small. It's a part of a day. It's the end of a day. It looks like maybe the evening they give the concert. Because I noticed in the second iteration of the application, the applicant had forgotten to sign the first time. So in the second iteration, there was a little bit more information. And on the day they're giving their choral concert, they're also going to visiting another city. So it just felt a little bit like, how will they have time to collaborate with local choral ensembles? This would be, I guess, just a very initial connection and meeting.
I can speak to this. The last meeting minutes can also speak to this. He's working with the sister cities and getting the location. So we've already been working, like I connected him with Stella. He's been emailing back and forth with Stella. This isn't the first trip over. They've got an ongoing relationship. The reason why they're working with Stella is because the place where they historically do the concert said that they weren't allowing the concert. So I think big picture, knowing that they have this ongoing trip, that it's not just this like one and done, oh, they're singing for 30 minutes and then leaving. Knowing that this course in particular has been very involved with other sister cities and working with, I mean, WC does our exchange, right? Like he is the person that does that. So I do have confidence that not only in this trip are they working with our representative to make the concert and doing other sister city kind of connected things, but then if you look at their history, they do forge those relationships, not just with Poggio, but with our other sister cities as well. And I don't know if that's extraneous. And so you're like, you don't include that when thinking about this, but I think it speaks to their commitment to the commission as a whole.
Sounds good to me, Allison.
I did my homework for this, y'all.
Well,
So I think it would be good for us to talk about the other Poggio proposal before we make a decision.
I did want to slip in one last comment. I was trying to make sure to give the actual commissioners the floor first. I think something else that the subcommittee should also consider is when we're giving repeat grants. Now, I know the request for a travel grant is different than the recent donation that the commission gave the high school for like a delegation trip. But I think it is something to consider as whether or not, you know, we have to maybe skip a year and just, they can't request grants consecutive years, just to make sure that it appears that it is a fair process. Everybody is getting equal opportunity to be able to apply and receive a grant.
That makes total sense to me. My only pushback is that so far in the years that I've been with Sister City, I've been approached by multiple cities, multiple times by multiple people to involve the high school. And part of those exchanges, part of those kind of that involvement is that there's this reciprocity of like, yes, we'll host people from France. Yes, we will do this fundraiser. Yes, we'll host these students, all these things in exchange for when we go over to maintain our portion of it, that you help with our funding for students who can't do it. So I think it makes total sense when I'm thinking about the city at large and access to this money to have that consideration. I just think what that will then cause is that Charlottesville City Schools starts telling the sister cities, no, we're not going to do these organizations. No, we can't. Like, we don't, because our commitment to equity in the schools is that we don't do things where we can't guarantee that they'll have funding, that all of our students have equal access to this. And so if we take away a large funding source, then you'll see that the sister cities are going to be competing for access to CHS specifically. and those types of things. So just something to have on your radars. I do think that it would get more competitive, that the France program would fight with the with the Italy that there would just be some issues. And I think overall our connection with schools would suffer as a result.
I mean, one thing that we can consider is the actual people who will be benefiting from the travel funding will not be the same people. I mean, I get that with our grants program, we would, we would not allow the same organization to apply 2 years in a row. I think it might be a little different for a school since it's a different program and different people making the proposals. Now, if every year we got one from the same one, I don't know, maybe that's something that we would want to discuss just to provide a little bit of equity within the schools. But Charlottesville High School is really our only local, our primary local high school.
And Allison, does the school do any fundraising for these different trips?
They do. So they do all the fundraising. They do lots of fundraising, and we do have other trips to different cities. It just, in my understanding, because again, I'm fairly new. This is only my second year. I mean, dating back to when Annie Evans was in this position two coordinators ago, it is the backbone of when we think about the exchanges on Besançon. When we think about they want to bring another school over from Besançon, they want to do a middle school thing with Poggio. They want to continue the choral thing with Poggio. They want to in the future do like some sort of pen pal thing with Wewe. Like every sister city is coming and wanting to get involved in our schools, which is awesome, and we love that. But I do think there is this underlying understanding of we'll do everything we can to forge these meaningful relationships. And outside of money, they're meaningful. We're getting these relationships. We're learning about cities and cultures far away. But they do rely. It's been a funding source for a long time. I don't know if that helps answer your question. I don't want to just be like all about the money. Like we love working with the sister cities for all of the amazing other things. But ever since I can remember, I've heard them say like we rely on the funds to make sure that our students can consistently go. Now, if that's not the case, I think that's fine. We can figure it out. We just have to be very upfront with this year. We're only awarding X number of dollars to CHS so that if one program, do you know what I'm saying? So that that they're not competing against each other, but they work out internally. Okay, who's going to apply for the grant? Who won't this year? Or will we both apply and the best person win? Kind of thing. Like, how will we do that to support both sisters or all of the sister cities that might be requesting?
Okay. I'm really not, my line of questioning isn't really to deter support in any way. I just want to make sure that we do a careful critique of all of the applicants.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can we go ahead and talk about the other Poggio proposal?
Mm-hmm.
The one from, I believe, I have it as RGW, but I think it's RG.
RGW is fine. Yeah.
I can go, or I can let someone else go first. I think I went first last time.
Vivian or Allison, do either of you want to start on this one?
Take it away. I kind of like listening, and then it really confirms my like, yes, I was on track, or no, I was not.
I mean, I'm glad to start if you all would like. Or Vivian might want to. Vivian, you want to go first?
I'm sorry, I really don't want to. I don't want to drag out the previous conversation. I just wanted to add. This is just the last little short bit. I know I kind of brought this up at the last meeting, but I think maybe if this becomes like kind of a pattern type of thing where we're getting repeat applications from the same program and it becomes a problem, then it might be worth looking into codifying something with the high school specifically about, working together with them. So it doesn't, okay. But moving on to this one, Damon, would you like to start? I had a few thoughts, but I also do like enjoying, I enjoy listening in the.
So my first reaction to this proposal was a 12-year-old artist, really? But then I Googled the artist and was pretty impressed by her work. And especially for, I mean, I am no artist, so I definitely cannot paint. But I thought her work was surprisingly good. My one concern I had was, and I know obviously being 12, she would need a parent to go along, but she's requesting $1,000 for both her and $1,000 for her mother. And her mother doesn't really have much of a role in her work other than being her, mother, being her supervisor, being her guardian on the trip. So that was, that was kind of a concern that I had with, I wasn't really, as much as I think she would benefit, and I do believe that she would kind of create some interesting connections with Poggio. I was a little concerned about funding $1,000 for her mother, who didn't really have a significant role other than being her guardian. But I was impressed by her artwork, I have to say that.
I think my thoughts were kind of along the same vein. I thought a lot of it seemed about like, it seemed like maybe she would particularly benefit from the experience, but maybe seemed less about like establishing connections with the city aside from benefiting people there or people in Charlottesville. It just seemed a little bit limited in the scope for how much she was asking for.
That's a perfect place for me to piggyback. I was really not as convinced, but with this application, I'm still looking at this point. This was the second one I looked at, and I was still looking for a stronger connection with our sister city or our mission. And I felt that it felt a little bit like Poggio was incidental to a week-long Italy experience. The applicant mentioned the Medici Villa, a couple of times, and mentioned wanting to see the Botticelli painting, which is not in Poggio. She kind of implied that it's in Poggio, but it's in Florence, and the trip wants to include Florence and Bologna and Pisa in a week. And I just feel like after some applications that really connected more with the city itself or did a little advance work, I wasn't as supportive of this one. It just seemed a little too general, too broad, like some travel support to get to Italy and then stay in Poggio as your base location. But that's my take on it.
I agree. And I think this speaks to Max's point via email of having a rubric that clearly kind of delineates the stronger ones from the weaker ones and less like a holistic way. But I mean, I guess it would still be holistic depending on the type of rubric. But I think, moving forward, having even if it's a bare bones rubric, this one would have scored lower based on the connection, based on like the evidence related to Poggio, other things like that. I think had we not gotten any other applicants, like had this been last year, we had a surplus, maybe we would have considered, but I think given everything, it was just it was weaker in comparison to others, like you said.
So it sounds like we all agree that we don't feel it's appropriate to fund this one. So do we want to go ahead and determine what we would like to do with Poggio, or go ahead and review the remaining Winneba ones and then decide in the end? There are right now, I believe, three qualified Winneba proposals that live in Charlottesville, Albemarle.
I say we review the other ones, and then given our surplus rule, we'll circle back, and if we have a surplus, we can have a conversation. Otherwise, it will get declined.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And we don't have to spend all of our money too. I mean, we can choose to spend $7,000 or whatever.
So just to review, we are keeping, when you say Winneba, Damon, you are removing, you said 4, right? You removed KJ because that was that was a green county?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think we have DBT, VCP, and CM remaining.
YR, there's also YR.
Why? Oh, that okay.
I found, well, I'll just throw my hat in, whatever. I thought the 2 strongest applications for Winneba travel support came from VP, who wants to participate in the Ghana trip upcoming in May with the Charlottesville Winneba Foundation. I thought that person clearly connected the travel with our mission, clearly explained the $1,000 would defray the $2,500 trip cost, had a clear statement of need, and resides in Charlottesville. And the other one I thought was strongest was the DDT. Same thing, same trip to Ghana, Charlottesville Winneba Foundation, a clear statement of her travel objective and how it aligned with our mission, good articulation of her need. She also mentioned that she's receiving some funding from the foundation itself. So I take that as someone who's motivated to make this trip and do this travel. And is supplanting the city funding with, other funding. And I would say those are the 2 I can wholeheartedly support. We've knocked MT out of the running, and I don't think I thought YR or CM were very viable.
I agree with the 2 that you just stated were very strong. I saw no
do as
reason
well.
not to fund them. I like their approaches. I thought their stories were compelling, and I think they have strong ties to our mission and furthering our relationship with Winneba. I liked the KJ proposal. I'll say that. I felt it was also strong, but I understand the city's desire to fund Charlottesville Albemarle proposals. So do we basically agree that DT and VP are to be funded?
I can get behind that.
I would agree to that. Yeah, I would agree to that too.
Cool. That's an agree from Allison too. All right, great. So shall we talk about CM? I think CM is our remaining clearly, well, it's technically eligible. So he is the one who is interested in traveling there to gain a better understanding of the city and potentially moving there someday.
I didn't find that has nothing to do with our mission. That's kind of like the vacation.
Yeah.
I want to go and check out this area and learn about it and see if I might settle there for the next chapter of my life.
Yeah.
That felt like a part of someone's personal journey, but not anything that connected with giving back or adding to or coming back to share with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it did not have strong ties with developing our sister city relationship, and it was had more of a personal focus, similar to the others that we have excluded, particularly TR.
And the applicant there didn't, just barely grazed Winneba. I mean, Winneba was just a splinter, it felt to me. She mentioned Ghana much more, and Africa, but really didn't, there was, you know, very little focus on our sister city itself. So I would not feel comfortable funding that one.
It's reasonable. I agree.
Any input from you, Vivian, or oh, there's a chat. I agree. I'm not used to communicating in the chat. Everyone's agreeing. Okay. All right. So how about the other one? Oh, the YR. I felt that this one was also weak because there was no travel objective outlined. Our mission statement was repeated verbatim. And I assume this person is referring to the Charlottesville Winneba Foundation trip, but even that wasn't clear from the application. It did say Winneba, and it said I would follow the itinerary plans in place for the travel with the city group. We can assume she's talking about the trip in May, but there was no money amount requested. There was nothing indicated about how her travel would offer something or give her something, or I don't know. I feel like I don't want to be too harsh, or not harsh, too critical or rigid, but I do feel like we do ask a simple question. Can you tell us how this travel is going to, you know, have something to do with partnership or relationships or connections? And if a person doesn't say anything about that, I feel like they didn't hold up their end of the deal.
Right. I mean, basically, she is probably going on the Charlottesville Winneba Foundation's trip, and otherwise she really didn't state anything but that, presuming that's true. I mean, I think we can probably presume that's what she means by following the itinerary, but it is definitely a weakly written proposal.
I think I wrote this in the chat,
Yeah.
but it reminds me of last year when we had a broader conversation of like, do we, like, all of the hidden, whether that's like written capital or language, language skills that are embedded to the process. And, you know, I think it's hard for us because we have this one kind of artifact that we are analyzing and having to make a judgment call on. And so is it like, do all of our residents have equal access to this? I think that's a great conversation that we can dive into probably a different time about like what linguistic and cognitive supports are needed to support equal access or equitable access. But then also, I mean, there's a world where they found out that other people were applying and they like really quickly filled it out and weren't paying much attention. You know, it has nothing to do with access. It has to do with like what they put into it. So I'm having to infer, right, like what led to the production of this kind of subpar application. But I never want to hold language against someone and rule someone out because they weren't able to fully access the application form. But I also understand why we have certain guidelines that we follow. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about over here.
I agree with that point. And you in the chat, but I guess would it be something we would do to ask for more information and reevaluate based on that.
I think last year it was easier because we only had a couple applications. So it was really easy to like say, hey, give us more details on this and resubmit. I think, Adrian, isn't that what we did last year?
Yes, I believe we only had two applicants, and we wanted a little more. We wanted more to go on. But,
I think, and that was successful last time. I just worry this time that anyone who we wouldn't award this to this time, we'd have to extend the same opportunities to, right?
Right. I'm such a believer in next time around that we have some kind of workshop, Zoom or in person or whatever, to give people some lead time and prep on, this is what makes a good, in addition to the rubric, I'm 100% behind that, and that's been on our to-do list here. But also some kind of guidance. Here's what we're looking for in an application. Here's what you need to include. And so it doesn't help this particular applicant right now, but I would be willing to support that in the future, that we give people 2 months before this or a month before, hey, if you're thinking about applying for travel scholarship, come to this workshop or get this flyer that, or look online to see this is a strong application, this is a weak one, whatever it turns out to be. That's a teacher in me. But yeah, and you're right, Allison, we don't know the circumstances behind this, but
I get that. You could also say that, we would potentially need to follow with most of the poorer applicants. Not poor as in monetary, the poorer applications. I think, I know we like to fund as many cities as possible. Would we go back to the Besançon and ask her to provide more depth to her proposal and its connections to the sister cities?
no.
And I don't think we would propose we do that. I
guess
think
in the future,
one thing that's
sorry.
different about this one is we do believe that this candidate is participating in the Charlottesville-Winneba Foundation's trip, which provides her, even though we might not see it in writing, simply participating in that trip provides a bit more substance to her proposal, at least in my opinion, than a vacation. So that's one thing that makes this proposal a little more compelling than, for example, the Besançon proposal, because we probably know that she's referring to the CWF trip. But
Also
she didn't even include how
oh,
much
sorry.
money that she wanted. So I'm comfortable with not funding it, but
To Adrian's point, I think having a video where maybe we could go over maybe a workshop also, but just having maybe a 5-minute video going through what makes a good application and just having it on a website would be a good thing to have for next cycle. But yeah, I'm in agreement on this application.
Well, we stand now with potential $4,000 to the applicant for the high school trip to Pojo, and $1,000 to each of 2 applicants to Winneba on the Charlottesville-Winneba Foundation trip. So that's where it's $6,000. Do we stop there? Do we go back and visit the other Pojo applicant?
I think if we fund Winneba for $2,000, I think $4,000 is pretty adequate for another city. I think maybe 5,000 for one city is potentially overkill, although I don't know. What do you all, and I think we all
Where would you
agree
see that
it was
$5,000? Damon, where would that $5,000 be going?
Actually, it would be 6,000 for Poggio if we funded it. So
Right.
there's the 4,000 for the school and the other proposals for 2,000.
Yeah.
So it would be 6,000 for one city and 2 for the other, even though, I mean,
Well, you could all,
we could
yeah.
do it, but do we want to do that?
I don't think, and this is just my opinion, from our discussion, it doesn't sound like the other Poggio application was stronger than the moderate to weak Winneba applications. So if we're not awarding that money to the other Winneba applications, then I don't think we should award it to that person.
I
And
think
fair.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, they're both not strong
Yeah.
in different ways, but I agree that I think we're showing consistency by not funding either. Sorry, Vivian, I interrupted you.
Nope, I was just saying I agree.
So are we funding those 3 proposals?
Let's review the 3 we just talked about. WC to the Charlottesville High School group going to Poggio, 4,000. VP 1,000 to Winneba. DT 1,000 to Winneba. Not funded. We are discussing RGW with a moderate to weak application. CM moderate to weak application. YR moderate to weak application. I should have mentioned RGW to Poggio, CM to Winneba, YR to Winneba, MT disqualified or not as eligible because of Fluvanna County, and KJ the same due to Greene County. I think that that's only 8. We had 9. Who am I leaving out? Who am I leaving out?
YR?
YR? No, I had YR. Oh, TR. TR was moderate to weak. TR was the vacation request. And potentially the city servant or public officer that might not be eligible based on that status.
I mean, if we were to broaden it ourselves geographically, I think that KJ was, wait, was it KJ? Yeah. KJ was a compelling proposal, but again, it's outside of Charlottesville, Albemarle.
Well, we technically prioritized Charlottesville and Elmore residents. So is this a case where we have a compelling one, we have money for that city, we go to the city and ask before awarding? Or are we making the sweeping rule of this year we're only offering it to Charlottesville and Albemarle, and we'll go back to the board and say next year, if the situation happens like it did this year, what do you advise?
Max, I'm curious if you think the city would prefer to fund a lesser proposal that was in Charlottesville, Albemarle, or a better proposal that was outside of the city, or if they equal out and we fund neither.
I think it's hard for me to say what the city manager's office or Keena, how they might respond to a question like that. I am glad to take back any request that the committee has in terms of, consideration for a grants applicant. And then just let you know how they respond, so.
Part of me thinks we should just decide today and ask that question for the future. Because I know that our candidates, I mean, we've said that when we would be responding to the public, we're not going to have another chance to meet for another month to make a decision. So I don't know. I don't know about y'all. My feeling is that we go ahead and we fund these $6,000 worth of travel scholarships and let it be.
I can support that.
I agree.
Allison?
Agreed.
Okay, don't go. I need to go over a couple other things with you. So we're clear. I'll write up the minutes of this meeting and get them to you, but we have to send notice to these people. And I have templates. I know I have a template for winners. I may not have a template for those who don't get funded. Is anyone willing to draw up a template?
Maybe we can look at the ones that we did for the grants and kind of take it from there. I'm sure it's probably similar language.
Yeah. I mean, the template for the travel scholarship funding is very short and to the point. So maybe that could even be worked. But anyway, so we did say we would announce this by April 7th. The sooner we get this word out to people, the better. Can we, well, before we divvy that up, I'd like to go over a couple other things. I'm going to do share screen one more time, if you don't mind.
I'm so sorry. I'm in a different time zone, so I'm actually 6 hours ahead. So it's like 11:30. Is it at all possible if I might need to like pretty soon, but this is just pretty short, or if this would be, if I could get this by email. I don't want to.
That's fine with me, Vivian.
Okay.
Go to
Okay,
sleep.
thank you.
It's
Thank you,
too late
Vivian.
for this.
Have a
Thank
great
you for
trip.
participating.
Yeah, thank you. I'll reach out to you if I have any questions. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you all.
So this shouldn't take long, but I just want that actually before we decide who sends the you've won or you haven't been funded letter, which like I say, I can send you a template for it. But I would like to design a simple form. And here I have design acceptance form for scholarship recipients to sign. And in the past few months, we've encountered a couple of issues. And one of them is this financial, it's three expectations. The first one is about the financial arrangement. So either you submit a reimbursement request and there's a timeline on that, 60 days following travel, or you receive the money now. If the applicant says I have to have it now, I don't have enough of my own, but we're going to have to work with legal because we talked with them, Damon and Max, you'll remember this, that they would sign some kind of a form that assigns that money over to a fiscal sponsor.
Which they would find on their own.
They find on their own. So we're no longer giving money directly to Charlottesville Winneba Foundation. We're only giving money to the recipient. And then they sign something saying, I allow that money, I'm the one assigning it to another party. That's how we keep the boundaries clear that we're not sponsoring any particular trip. So that's one expectation. The other document, I mean, the other part.
But just to clarify, I do want the audience to understand that the money doesn't actually hit the hands of the applicant.
Right. Yeah, actually, they would fill out that assignment form or assignation. I'm not sure what the right term is. We might need some help from our city attorney on that, and I couldn't draft that form at all. I don't know what it looks like or sounds like, but they would have to sign that before we could give money to any other third party. Okay. The second set of expectations are about your comportment. I'm using an old-fashioned word, while traveling. And this was simply a paragraph we talked about. I think, Allison, this is the paragraph I was hoping you might have drafted for use in our application, but then we decided let's not bother with putting it in the application. But this would be a great place for it. You know, you've been given you are going to be given funding or funded, but you know, here's what we expect if you go on this trip, whatever trip you're going on. And the third one is that you should report on your travel to our commission, you know, a 5 or 10 minute long thing, which we didn't do. We didn't do last year. We did not hear from either of the recipients. I think that probably falls to us. I don't know if we want to set up a liaison for each person. You know, all these things happen if someone kind of keeps at it. But anyway, that's all I wanted to. I'm willing to draft that 1-page document with those 3 sets of expectations, and then it might need to be tweaked, or especially the part about the financial arrangement. Maybe this word is arrangement, not exchange. Financial support. But this would technically go in the letter saying, congratulations, you've been chosen to be funded for your travel or whatever. We need you to sign this form and get it back to us, and to complete the whole process or something.
But once they complete that form, we then provide the money to the organization that they've made the arrangement with, right? We don't actually give the money to the person.
Well, we're talking about 2 different forms. One is ours that is kind of just terms of engagement here. These are our expectations regarding how the finances work, how you ought to behave while traveling, to representing our financial support in a way, or taking advantage of our financial support. I know my words aren't always right, but benefiting from our support. We do expect a certain degree of dignity and respect and good behavior, and then expectations that you will report back to us and let us know how it went, what you learned, so that's one form, Damon. The second form is something I wouldn't even begin to know how to write.
Right. And
that in case we don't know which of our six funded persons now may want to go the route of a fiscal sponsor.
Allison, how do you think the school will manage? Will they just go the straight reimbursement route, or will they need some type of fiscal arrangement?
That's a great question. Will Cook handle? Oh, sorry, my goodness. Do WC? I'm sorry, it's a late day, and I'm blanking on basic rules here. I can check in to see how they do it. They've done it in the past, so we should have some record of how we paid them. I don't know if that's readily available or who has those records, but I don't fully know. I would assume reimbursement. The only difference would be like if they need the money to pay for the thing prior to. then
I
that
wonder if
would-
it being a school that it might be a slightly different process,
Yeah.
considering it's not an individual we're providing money to, but basically our own city-owned entity.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess. You know, we've issued funding to the school before, for a trip that, you know, a group was taken that was related to the mission of the Sister City Commission. And so I don't know that we'd necessarily do anything outside of what we would normally do, in that situation anyway. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'll ask just for the sake of it, but I think that we won't have to take any extra steps to issue the school their travel scholarship.
Kind of like we did for the Besançon
Mhm, mhm.
trip recently, even though that was a
Sponsorship.
sponsorship instead of a travel scholarship.
So a detailed invoice,
Yeah.
itemized invoice should be sufficient.
That makes sense.
Well, why don't I get a wrap up of this meeting to everyone with the let's call it the expectations form. And then I mean, I'm happy right now to decide who contacts who, but wait till you hear from me to do that.
Sounds good. I think you
So-
or I should contact the school probably just to kind of pull those associated with, unless Allison thinks differently. Allison, would it be better for either Adrienne and I or me to?
I think as the official correspondence, yes. I, of course, will hear about it, and I'm sure will help, especially with the process of making sure they do everything that they need in the follow-up. But I just think that's the right call. And
And
I'm happy.
Adrienne and I could copy you. I
Yeah,
think that
that's
would make sense.
that's totally fine.
Okay. Damon, do you just want to do that? And I
Sure.
can do the other two funded.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be fine.
And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So maybe each of us take 2 of the persons not funded.
That's
Or,
fine.
Fine by me.
okay. I'm going to share one more time because
Also, I just wanted to note for the one applicant that I spoke about, who's a city employee, I don't think that the basis that you should state on their, I'm gonna call it a denial letter. I know that sounds harsh, but I don't think that we should list the fact that they're a city employee is the reason why they were denied the grant.
Yeah.
I just raised it as a question, not saying that they were automatically disqualified because they were a city employee. So,
Sure thing. That's fair. Because
Mhm.
that's not why we decided.
right.
Yeah.
okay, Allison, if you I'll just say these initials. If you take TR and RGW,
To clarify, TR we disqualified because they were the vacation, right?
Let me
Yeah.
share the screen, and I think this is going to be a little easier. You can see my list here. Okay, under not funded. So
Mhm.
TR was a moderate to weak. And then we're not mentioning this business of the city worker because we don't
Are we
really.
doing what we did before, which is just having a denial letter? We don't really say why they were denied. We just said you were denied funding. And if you've got questions about why you were denied, please contact.
No.
Like that's last time. Or, isn't that
No,
what
we
I
didn't.
think,
We didn't say if you have questions.
Allison, that's actually what our office would recommend.
So we could just say like,
Well, can I mean, I've already been dealing with a couple people that wanted to know about their grant applications, and I would just prefer to say you have been denied. We hope you will consider applying again. And to say if you have questions, I'd like to not be the person that has to answer that. And it's not for any reason other than I'd like to not invite them to, if you have questions.
Then I think the language should just be, the committee has met and decided that you will not be receiving the funds for this season. We encourage you to, you know, consider reapplying in the following cycles, funding cycles, like best so-and-so. I think if they've got questions, they will ask questions.
Right,
I
right.
do think we need to include our correspondence. So, you know, especially if it's coming from like my work email, right? The Charlottesville City like school's work email. I need to be able to say, you know, have some sort of sister city email on that letter so that they know they're not emailing me. I mean, I could always forward it, but that it's coming on behalf of the sister cities. So even if it's like on behalf of the sister cities, insert email. At this time, we'd like to say, do you know what I'm saying? It can be part of the stock letter, but just having that like email.
Like copy the sister city address?
I think copying it's fine. I think also, like, if we're not going to say, please contact Sister City with any inquiries, because we don't want to open that can of worms, just maybe putting it in the signature, like having a signature like we did last time that's like on behalf of, like, from the Sister City. So we put our name, but then on the bottom of the signature is the Sister City Commission with the email.
If you want to send it, when I send you this expectations form, I'll also have two templates, one for those who are being funded, one not. And I think we can add, and you can just, it almost I don't know, then it almost makes like sense for me to just send them all out from the Seville Sister Cities email. You know what I mean? Then no one's personal email is involved.
That would just be, I mean, I think I'm happy to do, like, I'm happy to delegate the work. I don't want that to seem like not. I just think if our concern is that they're going to be emailing us all privately, is there a way where we can just like send them all out at the same time, just blind CC everyone?
Yeah, I can do that. We're not talking about a lot.
Unless the only difference would be if you are, I think you can blind CC everyone for the denial letter, and then we can divide and conquer the award letters because they're going to have to return with a form.
Okay.
So if you, I'm happy to take the, well, I can't take the school one, but Damon's taking that one. I'm happy to take the other award. If you want to split the winners up, then that would help delegate the work, then that we're each sending one or two.
How about this, Allison? Allison takes these two Winneba funded folks.
Perfect.
And I will send a template because we had one from last year.
Perfect.
And
that
so,
way it's, yeah.
And then I'll handle the non-funded coming straight from the Seville email. And but everyone, please wait for that expectations form from me.
Sounds good.
Yep, thank you.
So, you know, thinking about whether or not these emails should be sent from the sister city's email address, I think probably whether or not they're an individual is being awarded a grant or being denied one, those emails should probably come from the sister city's email. And I don't know if Damon and Allison, if you guys want to draft the letter and provide it to Adrienne and she send it out, or just log into the sister city's email and send it yourself. But I think the optics of that coming from your official email address, and again, you all, the commission being a public body that's kind of ordained under the city council, it just looks better if it comes from the commission's email address.
Well, I'll send you the expectations form, a couple of templates, and how to get into Seville Sister City's email. And then Damon, you can get in and send it to WC, Allison to the other two, BP and DT, from Charlottesville Sister City's email. I'll do the same for the
Max, do you think it would be okay if we copied our regular emails, if that's open to us, and then participated in follow-up conversation using them? Or should
Yeah, I think
we,
so. I think
would that be
so.
okay?
Should we find ourselves in a situation where there's a FOIA request, just keep in mind that we have to search all the email addresses that may have been used on the topic of the request.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, in our response.
we know about that. All right, great. Well, thank you, Adrian, for all the work you have put into this. Really appreciate it.
Will someone just remind me, I just said expectations form, templates, and how to get into our email. Okay. Okay. And we have some to-dos for the future that include a grid for future use, video workshop flyer, online models for guidance in filling out applications. Those are future tasks. All right, I can't think of anything else. Thank God.
Don't think any. Thank you, Max.
Yeah, thank you both.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Right.
All right, until next time. I guess we're back to our regular meeting schedule this upcoming, I guess,
May, what is the date? May?
First Tuesday in May is the second, May 2nd.
May 2nd. Okay.
All right, everyone. Well, have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Max.